All right, we are taking a look at system story problems today. Story problems are fun. So let's take a look at this first one. So the typical system story problem, Mary Bell has $1.25 in her pocket. The money is in quarters and dimes. There are a total of 8 coins. How many quarters and dimes does Mary Bell have in her pocket? Some important information. This question, how many quarters and dimes does she have? That's going to kind of help us set up what our variables need to stand for. Our variables are going to need to stand for the number of quarters and the number of dimes, because that's what I'm looking for. The next thing to think about is that because it's a system, I'm going to have 2 equations. And we've got this information set up for 2 equations right here. We got our first equation, or the first set of information, that Mary Bell has $1.25, and it's made up in quarters and dimes. So we're going to use that to write one equation. And then the second sentence tells us that there's a total of 8 coins. So that's kind of the easiest equation for us to write. There's a total of 8 coins. We're going to let Q equal the number of quarters. We're going to let D equal the number of dimes. So if I go back here, that means that Q plus D, the number of quarters she has, plus the number of dimes she has to equal 8, because we're told she has 8 coins altogether. Then if we look at our other equation, the quarters and dimes are going to make up $1.25. Well, quarters are 25 cents each, so I'm going to write that as 25Q. Dimes are 10 cents each, so their value is going to be represented by 10Q, 10D, because it's dimes, for a total of 125 cents. So notice I went ahead and I got rid of my decimals. I'm just having 25Q, 10D, 125 cents. You could have your decimals, just make sure you're consistent. So we've got our system right here. We've got our 2 equations, got them from our equation problem. So now we're ready to solve. Normally we like to solve with elimination. It's a little bit easier, although you could do it either way here. So let's take a look. Just review. Here's our problem again. Here are our 2 equations. We're going to use elimination. Now, I'm going to go ahead and try to eliminate my D for dimes, just because then I have to multiply by a smaller number. So I'll multiply my bottom equation by -10. And when I do that, I'm going to end up with -10Q plus -10D equals -80. Again, just double check, make sure you multiplied absolutely everything by that -10. I'm going to put my original equation for the value up here. So I've got 25Q plus 10D, and that equals 125. All right, I'm going to do elimination. So I just like to do a quick check. Will my variables eliminate? I've got a +10, a -10. They will. Awesome. So let's go ahead and add these together. My dimes go away. So I'm left with 15Q. Lovely Q right there. Equals 45. I'm going to divide by 15 on both sides. So when I do that, I'm going to find that she has 3 quarters. All right, so she's got 3 quarters. I know that the total number of quarters she has is 8, so that means that she must have 3 dimes. Sorry, 5 dimes. 5 dimes, because 3 plus 5 is 8. We should probably go ahead and plug in here and just make sure it works. So I'm going to do that mentally. She's got 3 quarters, so 3 times 25, that gives me 75 cents. Plus 5 dimes, 10 times 5 is 50. 75 cents plus 50 cents, that gives me $1.25. Awesome, we've checked it, it works. So when you answer story problems, you want to make sure that you put your answer in the context. For instance, here we would say she has 3 quarters and 5 dimes in her pocket, because the question asks how many quarters and how many dimes does she have in her pocket. We've answered our question, we've shown our work, we are done. Let's look at another one that's also very common. All right, So here we have a story problem where people are shopping. And we've got two different people, so we've got two different scenarios. So Kate bought 3 used CDs and 1 used DVD at the bookstore. Her friend Joel bought 2 used CDs and 2 used DVDs at the same store. Kate spent $20 and Joel spent $22. Determine the cost of a used CD and a used DVD. So again, here we've got our question, determine the cost of a used CD and a used DVD. That lets me know what my variable should stand for. So already over here, I've got C equals the cost of a CD and D equals the cost of a DVD. You can use X and Y. I like to use letters that kind of represent what we're talking about. So now we've got Kate. She's buying 3 CDs and 1 DVD. And we also know that Kate is spending $20. So all this information for Kate is going to go together. We've also got Joel, and Joel bought 2 used CDs and 2 used DVDs at the same store. He spent $22. So let's write an equation for Kate. Here's Kate's equation. So she bought 3 used CDs, so that would be 3 times the cost of a CD plus 1 used DVD, so 1 times the cost of a DVD. She spent $20, so that's going to be equal to 20. Now we've got Joel and his equation. So for Joel, I've got 2 CDs, so 2C plus 2 DVDs, 2D, and that's going to equal $22. Got my 2 equations. Now all I'm going to need to do is solve them. So let's take a look at that. All right, here are my 2 equations again. I again like to use elimination, and it's just going to work out. It's going to be nice to eliminate my D's. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to multiply this equation all by -2. So then I get -6c. I'm actually going to take that down here. I don't have enough room. So -6c plus -2d equals -20, -40. Making sure I multiplied everything. And then we've got our original 2c plus 2d. And that equals 22. All right, so let's add these 2 together. I'm going to do a quick check, just make sure that when I add them, I've got a -2d, +2d, yep, that eliminates perfect. So -6c plus 2c will give me a -4c, and then -40 plus 22, that'll give me a -18. All right, so it looks like we're going to have some decimals, but that makes sense because we're talking about money. So let's divide by -4. Divide by -4. And we're going to get C equals 4.5. Now, since we're talking about money, we're going to go ahead and make it not just 4.5, but 4.50. So the cost of a CD is going to be $4.50. We want to go ahead and plug in to one of our equations. Let's plug into the bottom one. So I've got 2C plus 2D equals 22. All right, so I've got 2 times 450 plus 2D equals 22. So that'll give me a 9. I'll subtract 9 from both sides. I'm going to kind of skip a little bit just because I'm running out of room. So I subtract 9 from both sides. Again, because 2 times 4.5 gives me 9. So then 2d will equal 22 minus 9 should give me 13. Divide by 2. Come on over here. So d equals 6.5. And again, because we're talking about money, we're going to make it 6.50. Give a little money sign. All right, so that's a little bit messy. Let's go ahead and turn to the next page so that we can write our answer. All right. So let's see if I can remember what everything cost. So a CD is $4.50. Again, you might be tempted to write 4.5. We're talking about money. I want to write $4.50. Then a DVD is $6.50. All right, so we've got our answer in the context of the problem. We wrote the 2 equations, we solved using elimination. With system story problems, you really want to take a look and see what are those 2 pieces of information. So for problems like this, when you're shopping, it's nice because we got Kate and we've got Joel. So they're each going to have their own equation. In the last equation, we had a value equation and we had a number of coins equation. So that's what you're looking for, and then you write your equations and you solve using substitution, elimination, or even graphing if you want. So if you still got questions, you can watch the video again. I've got other resources on my website. You can always talk to me or Ms. Ibanez before or after school. Thank you so much.